Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Marla. I will be facilitating the meeting today. And first, I will read a few things about our meeting and how it is run, and then we'll get started. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating all human beings with love, respect, empathy, compassion, and humility. Join us. Erace is an organization that does not espouse any political party, and we have no religious affiliation. We believe, excuse me, we believe in acceptance of all people, and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with the intention to listen, learn, and not to argue. And the land acknowledgement. We begin today by acknowledging that what we know as the United States is the ancestral and unceded territory of many indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named here. Members of our meeting group today are on the lands of the Chitimacha and Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Tonkawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Lenape and Piscataway in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, the Coahuila and Mojave in Riverside, and the Lumbee in Fayetteville. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and through today. We need to protect and honor the history and the people of these places. Despite centuries of colonial theft and violence, we should always remember that we are still on Indigenous land and it will always be Indigenous land. Okay, the format of the meeting, I think everybody who's here is familiar, but just a brief review. Everybody should keep themselves on mute unless you are speaking. I'll be keeping a list of folks who would like to be put on the list to speak. And in order to get on the list, just please show one finger and I will write you down. When it's your turn, you'll have 2 minutes to go. Please respect and don't interrupt the speaker. No side comments to others. No personal attacks, name calling, etc. If after the speaker is finished, you can raise 2 fingers asking or identifying that you have a clarifying question. The clarifying question is not to further the opinion of the asker. It is just to simply clarify what did you mean by, so on and so forth. It might be a word, a term, or something like that. Only 2 people are asked to ask clarifying questions per speaker. Okay, introducing the reason why I brought the topic. To be honest, I just kind of wanted something a little lighter and a little more, I don't know, to distract, I guess, a bit from the current climate of everything that's going on the news and everything else. So I really didn't have a specific motivation for selecting this, although it is Pride Month. So I think that exploring relationships and love is in order, so it can't hurt. I'll call on you all. We'll go around to introduce ourselves and then we'll get started. I think that's everything. Let's see. Nancy.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Nancy. I am located in the New Orleans area, and I am very excited to discuss this topic today. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Marion.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Marion, and I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the beautiful neighborhood of what is known as Gentilly. Those of you that live in New Orleans know about Gentilly. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise. I've been coming to the Erace meeting since the mid-90s in New Orleans, and then on and off. And then now I'm in Austin, Texas. Sorry, that shouldn't have been so difficult to explain.
Thank you. Richard.
Morning, everybody. It's Richard in New Orleans in the Irish Channel, not far from the Mississippi River. Been with Erace since the beginning in, I believe, 1993.
Thank you. Phyllis.
Morning, I'm Phyllis in New Orleans. I've been coming to Erace since the summer of 2008.
Teresa.
Good morning. I'm Teresa. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been coming since August 2022.
Larry.
Good morning, I'm Larry in New Orleans.
Amal.
Good morning. I'm in New Orleans as well. Well, let me take that back. I'm a few minutes outside of New Orleans, but I'm here.
Okay. With that, the list is open to discuss the video. Who would like to get on a list? All right, Teresa. And Nancy. Okay, let's see if I can get the timer up. Okay.
Yay, the internal clock. That was one of my suggestions. I'm glad
It was, thank you.
I didn't
don't
know how hard that
it
was. Anyway, like whoop, whoop. I put a message in the chat. Excuse me, a link to an article in the chat because when I first saw the video, the Korean guy and the black woman, I was like, what? Statistically, that hardly ever happens. So I was really amazed by that. But also, I remember reading something about, and this is the article that I posted in the chat about how Black women and Asian men are supposedly the least desirable demographics on dating apps, which I found hilarious. I've not been on dating apps, but I've never found any problem dating guys. And it could be because in some places like Denver, I basically had a guy tell me, that he was surprised that it bothered him so much that I was black. He didn't think that that was going to be the case, because we met before like the whole popular. I didn't even think the internet was that big of a thing. So you had to physically go in, look at somebody's videotape, and choose or whatever. So he knew what I looked like before we went out on our first date. And then it was like the first or second date when he kept talking in circles about diversity. And anytime someone starts like doing that kind of thing, it's like, what is going on? And finally he said, yeah, I don't know if I can do interracial relationships, but I did that couple alone because I used to live in Korea and teaching English as a second language, just time after time after time. And we always had a class every month. It was a different class. So I literally had in 14 months, hundreds of students throughout that time. And they always thought that they were the friendliest people. And if you were a foreigner, you would think that they were xenophobic. But I'd like to get back on and complete
Okay.
that thought. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Nancy.
Oh, this question for Teresa, though. This was a Korean person you were dating?
No, I was dating a white guy, if that wasn't clear. And that was
Oh,
in
okay.
Denver, Colorado, where it took
Okay.
me 3 days to find another black person. So very, very rare thing. I could see how you got confused. I just kind of
Yeah, I
parlayed
did a
into
little
Korea.
bit.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just thought that this article, is interesting because I have a biracial grandson, and the families, accepting not only the relationship but the children of the relationship, and there's only one. Okay, my grandson. Um, so I found the video kind of interesting, and they kind of made it sound, rather lighthearted when at times it can be a lot more serious than that video kind of makes it out to be. Um, some members, I I don't think anybody, I can't think of anyone in my family that has shown any resistance to my grandson, but on his side of the family, there has been some resistance just to him existing. And I find that, really sad and horrible for him, well, for me too. Um, I don't, people are people, uh, forget about their background, their racial makeup or anything of that sort. But people are just, people accept them for who they are. You don't have any choice in how you were born and who your parents were. And I don't think people should be making judgments, um, although they do, based on what you look like, um, and just accept you for who you are until they can definitely learn more about your character. Okay, that's enough. And I'm kind of right on time.
You are. All right. Next, we've got Teresa again.
Let me just say, I love that inspirational music that plays you out. But to follow up with South Korea, that was the only, and my roommate was black. We didn't know each other beforehand, but we thought it was funny. Oh, they put the two black women together. Anyway, that was the only foreign country I've ever lived in where two white men thought that they had to warn two black women about how racist the people were. And, we kind of just held a poker face as we were listening to these two. And then afterwards, we looked at each other and just had the best laugh. That was like the first time I had only known her for maybe a day or two. And that was one of our bonding moments is that they had to tell, and we both were from the South. And I thought, wow, what did they really think that they were going to tell us about racism? Anyway, um, so I could somewhat understand from the Korean guy's perspective because, everybody has their cultural norms. And if you're an outsider and you don't know what people will take as common sense. Like it was okay to drink until you vomited. Like if your boss was taking you out to drink, it would seem disrespectful if you refused that. But if you were to just sit on the curb and eat, that was taboo. So, it's just like, well, I'm not vomiting on the sidewalk. And every morning, excuse me, let me back up. Sunday mornings, you'd see people like, and maybe this has changed because I lived in Seoul, Korea in the late 90s. Um, People uh, taking a hose and washing all the vomit off. And you're just like, wow, why would you just drink into excess like that? But again, different cultural norms and not fitting in. So I was most surprised by that couple. But talking about not being accepted, Nancy, one of my nephews is very dark skinned. Is my time up? Because it's frozen on the screen.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
it
I see
is.
it now. I'm sorry. Okay,
No,
I'll get
that's
back on the
okay.
list. It
Okay.
froze at 127, by the way.
I don't know why. Anyway, the list is open.
The playoff music is excellent. That's how I knew my time was up.
There's playoff music. I can't hear that. Okay. All right, Marion, and then I put Teresa back on. Anybody else?
Okay, so it's me.
Let me try to get the timer on. Sorry,
In
Marion.
my notes here, I looked at that video twice to make sure. So if I'm saying something that isn't correct, you all anybody just stop me. But I have here that there was the lesbian couple in the video. Um, the girl, what, it was a white girl and a black girl, and the white girls said the N word, and when she said it, she said Nigger, and no, she said Nigga, and she was called on it. and she was told it was very offensive. And she said, well, I didn't say the word that ended in ER. I said the word that ended in A. And her black girlfriend told her, it doesn't matter whether you put the ER on the end or the A. It's still offensive to me. So don't say it again. So I thought that was so interesting that they had this relationship and they were clashing over how you say that nasty word. She said, don't say it, period. But I really, Tabari, I just found it that's so interesting that the couple, the interracial couple, was clashing over how to say that word, how and not don't say it. You can't say it. Well, you say. She said, well, you can't say it. I said, well, if this doesn't beat the brown off the shoe, I said, this is just absurd. So don't say it, period.
All right, thank you. Can you all still see, can you see the 11 seconds up in the corner?
See the what, Marla?
Mine is ticking 3 seconds, 2 seconds,
Okay,
and it's beside the
good.
recording.
All right.
And right now I hear playoff music and you guys don't hear it.
I can't hear anything. I don't know
Okay, so
that
some of us can hear the playoff music. That's
I'm
cool.
not a fan of this, honestly. Just to interject my opinion, I love the suggestion, but I have to click out and click back in repeatedly. So I'm just going to use, I
Okay,
think, if
it was
that's
just a
okay with
suggestion.
everybody,
Oh,
because I'm like clicking, coming back. Anywho, I'll experiment. Maybe it'll get better if
I
I
don't
can
know.
figure out.
Can I just talk about the timer for a minute? So
Yeah.
if you scroll over like at the top of all the gallery people, it shows up there too, and it doesn't freeze. Just FYI.
Right.
It is on your screen, but it doesn't freeze at the top right.
I can see it ticking down on mine. It's just I have to, when I click on it, I can't reset it without leaving you all going back and forth and back and forth. It's a little maddening. So anywho, I'll experiment with it. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Richard, you've got a clarifying question. You're muted.
There. Just for Miriam, for clarification, and I know we had a long time ago we had a discussion about the N-word issue. Related to the video we saw, when you just said just don't use it, are you also including that the African American in that relationship should not be using it also, that it shouldn't be used no matter what the color of your skin? Is that what you were saying?
well, you know what, Harvey? I'm sorry, Harvey. It's stuck in my brain. Richard, can't get it out.
No problem.
It's an ugly word, and all black people don't feel this way. I feel like don't say it. I don't care if you're all black. Some black people will say they can say it because they're black. And I had to tell a relative, I said, whenever I heard that word when I was growing up, violence followed. Somebody was either hurt or killed. And I don't think it ought to be said, period, by anybody. I don't care who says it. Black, brown, green, yellow, purple, orange, whatever. Don't say it, period. It's been tried to turn into some kind of word of endearment, and some black people try to justify it by saying only we can say that word, not anybody else. But I just don't, I feel like it shouldn't be said, period, because of my experiences. Pain and death usually followed when that word was said. So don't say it, period, because it dredges up horrible memories for me, and it has caused serious harm for other people that I know by saying that word. So nobody say it. I don't care. It's just an ugly, nasty, filthy word. Don't say it.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, Teresa, you are next, and then the list is open.
Okay, so completing my thought, I was just going to say, Nancy, I can understand what you're talking about because when, like, vast majority of my family is pretty light skinned. I mean, I have some who are a little bit darker than me, some who are very, very light skinned. They could pass. And when my nephew was born, his father was an immigrant from Nigeria. And so he was very dark skinned. And I was so offended when one of my cousins, who's lighter than I am, took one look at my nephew and said, he sure is dark. So, I mean, you could be a black person and have a black baby, but if your child is too dark, then, that could be another form of rejection. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And Marion, talking about I thought that was interesting too, that part between the lesbians was like it doesn't end in ER or A. And the first time I ever heard that differentiation among a white person explaining, and can you imagine just getting this explanation? And I was eating lunch in the teacher's lounge. And too bad Malcolm's not here. I don't know if Malcolm remembers it, but this was when we were teaching together. And I thought Malcolm was going to kill this younger white male teacher who said, well, there's a difference between saying nigga and nigger and da 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 in this explanation. And I could just see Malcolm just, if we were not at work, I think Malcolm would have beat him. But Malcolm is a very sophisticated man, but I could just and I thought that teacher just had no clue, could not read the room, thought he was having like this, I guess, intellectual conversation about the N word. Now, when I use it, it's definitely a curse word. I do not say that as a term of endearment to another Black friend. And I do know that the music industry and basically entertainment um, will bandy about, but when I use it, it is definitely a curse word. It's just another, and I love to curse. So that's something about me. Sometimes it's really challenging here in this group, but I try to follow the decorum. But
That was the
Richard, I know you
timer,
didn't ask
Teresa. I'm
me, but
sorry.
I'm just weighing in on my use of the N word. Yep, I'll
That
stop.
was,
I know I went
I
over.
apologize. I didn't turn it up enough. Figure this
It's
out
okay,
at
but
some point.
see, the playoff music worked.
The playoff music worked, but the clicking in and out for me did not.
I
I was
agree. I
afraid
agree.
I was
I'm gonna
gonna
watch
leave
that
the
video
meeting.
again and see.
Yeah, I need to too. Okay, we've got Phyllis, then Nancy, and Glenn.
So I have no direct experience with the culture of South Korea. All of it comes through Korean TV shows and movies. I'm not really listening to K-pop. But a friend of mine who lives in New Orleans, but is from Ethiopia, recently had a family trip to South Korea because her brother is currently working there, one of her brothers. And she was telling me all about her trip, and I asked her, did you get a sense of like people staring at you because you're Black or any racist stuff? And she said she really didn't, that people were really nice and friendly, and his coworkers and um I think his landlady, they hung out with all of them who are all Koreans. There were pictures in restaurants, and all the people in the background were just doing their own thing. Nobody was turning to look at the table full of Korean and Black people or anything. So hopefully things have changed there. There aren't a lot of Black people in any of the Korean TV shows or movies. But whenever a white person shows up, which is very rare, to me, they somehow don't look real after seeing just TV shows full of Koreans, and here's a white person and they look really off to me. So I don't know what that is, but just thought I'd throw that in. I'll probably have more to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got Nancy, then Glenn, and then Teresa.
I was just going to say that not that I think, I know that there is a difference about how the N word is perceived in older generations versus younger generations. And in conversations like with my grandson over that word, A is okay, ER is not. Okay. They don't, I don't think that they've had the experience, say my generation and older have had with that word. And to them, it has a different connotation and how it's used and whatnot. But definitely ER, I guess across the board, is offensive to anybody. That those are fighting words or words um, meant to cause harm. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Glenn, you are next.
Well, I have interracial marriages in the family. I have a son, not marriage. Well, I got a son, he's not married to, but he's had children by two white men. And, and I love my grandchildren. Uh, I have a cousin who married a German. He has two interracial children from them. We have a great relationship with those children. Then I had a cousin that had married a woman from Mississippi. Uh, the his daughter from that marriage, and the woman that he married, both of them were racist. His child was racist. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. Uh, uh, I called one time. She was rude to me.
Louise.
You know. So uh, uh, what I think about interracial, it's a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to uh, to accommodate. Each one has different culture, different beliefs. I was with my Philippine sister-in-law, and she was with a cousin of hers, and there was this laughing at something they were talking about, but I didn't find it funny at all. But that was their culture. We were laughing. That was funny to them. Uh, the um, how much time I got left? I have to get back on.
Perfect. Could y'all hear that?
You can put me back on the list.
Okay. Great. We've got Teresa, then Louise, and then Glenn again, and then Nancy.
So going back to Korea, I think looking back, more of the stares that I got was because of my dreadlocks, celebrating 31 years of dreadlocks. So more so than my skin tone, because my roommate was much more darker skinned than I was. And Glenn, speaking of Filipina friends, that's what they thought I was Filipina. Not from the, I mean, nobody ever, when I'm outside the country, no one ever thinks I'm an American until they hear me speak. And then it's almost like oh, you're American. It's like, oh, we're doing this again. Okay. But I remember one time I was walking and I think I was going to like a new restaurant or something, but I was walking in a route that I hadn't normally walked before. And I came across a sight that made me just like jump back, and I realized it was my own reflection. And that's when I was not expecting this mirrored building, and I saw how I looked, and I thought, okay, I can extend Korean some grace. You know, I startled myself seeing my own reflection in Korea, but I've had some of the lowest ugly American, like just you're not always in the mood to be stared at. And I remember waiting at a bus and I made eye contact with every single person on the bus who was staring at me while giving them the finger. And I would think that, as far as I know, that was like my lowest ugly American living somewhere. But I just wasn't in the mood, or like even the time when I would go to a museum and I would be looking at the display, and I would have like some little old Korean women trying to reach up and touch my hair because I was the display, or being on the bus and having them. So I think my hair was far, far more the draw than anything else of my experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got Louise, Glenn, Nancy, Amal, Larry. Louise?
It's actually, sorry, it's an N-word story. My son used to go to a daycare center, and there was one teacher that we became quite friendly with, as well as two other teachers, and it was kind of like a little group for a while. And after a few months, he seemed really nice enough. He wasn't like, I couldn't. He was never going to be a bosom buddy, but he was a nice bloke, and we liked hanging out with him. And then one day, we were talking about children actually, and he actually used that word for a kid. And yeah, exactly. And it was like, okay, then you're not African. We basically dropped him like a hot potato. It's like, really, can you just casually let that slip? Talking about anybody, but particularly a friggin' child, So anyway, yeah, that was it really. Just to say that that word is a very offensive word. And again, it depends on who it's coming from. It was offensive coming from him. By the way, he was white. Um, and so, yeah, that was, a decision made to just drop him as a friend. That's it.
Thank you. Glenn, you're next.
The attraction that the black man has to the white woman is an unnatural attraction. It's we've been psychologically been brainwashed to thinking that this woman is the and high watermark for us. It begins in slavery. The old Jim carrying the meeting the madam at the coach and carrying her bags. He looking at her. She got beautiful clothes on. She had perfume on. She's smelling good. So her hair's fixed, and she got painted fingernails and painted toenails, and so he he would. But then when you go to his woman was not able to even have soap, and maybe in a sack, no toothbrush, you know. So it begins there, and then we come into the era where we are watching TV. We only see ourselves in the inferior state, and even the white woman got to save the black man. Black man can't protect a woman. The woman got to protect him. And we looking at these movie starlets like Loretta Young, always got the best character, you know, and they make them look like they are just perfect, but that's all an illusion. They say cut, bring in the makeup, a hair piece of hair got out of place, this or that out of place, put some more makeup on, it's melting off, so they try to make the white woman look perfect in our eyes. So it's a lot of brainwashing while you see these football players who've got millions of dollars now going for what they believe is the high mark for them, marry them a white woman. That's it.
Okay, and it looks like Marion has a clarifying question, as does Nancy. So, Marion, go ahead. You're on mute.
Okay, why would you say the black man's attraction to a white woman is unnatural? And I stress unnatural. natural? And I know, Marla, I'm supposed to just ask the why, what, or where question.
You asked the question. Now shut up. Skip
I really
talking.
don't tell me to shut up. That's
No,
being rude
point of
and
order for
disrespectful.
sure.
Why did
No,
you
no
say
shutting up.
unnatural?
You're being redundant. You're asking the same question over and over again. Now, allow me to answer. That's what I wanted to say. Allow me to answer the question.
Well, answer it.
Uh, if somebody for 400 years tortured you and beat you, the white woman tortured you and beat you, killed you for 400 years, and then you want to fall in love with that, your enemy, wouldn't that be unnatural to anybody with common sense? When integration came, who was out there spitting on you? Who was there who was raising up Ku Klux Klans to murder you? Who was there when you were being burnt? They had a picnic, had their children out watching you being burned and hanged, castrated. Anybody with common sense would know it's too soon to be going with that woman. Did I answer your question?
Did that answer it, Marion? You're muted again.
I don't want to disrupt the meeting any further. I got an answer, so
Okay.
I'm just going to let it go at that, so everybody else will have an opportunity to say what they have to say.
Okay. Would you like to get on the list, Marion? Okay. And Nancy, you had a clarifying question as well? And then it's also your turn, Nancy.
Oh, it is? Okay. Well, my clarifying question was, well, what about the opposite? Why would, a black woman be attracted to a white man? But I guess you answered that as well. It would be the same. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, correct. All right, well, I'll continue since it's my turn. um, just in response to Glenn talking about these interracial relationships within his family, and then at the other side of the family, I guess has made racist comments. That is one of the things that I'm kind of dealing with now, with my grandson, is that some members in his family have made racist comments that he's overheard, which are very hurtful for him and confusing for him as well. I mean, you can imagine how emotionally damaging that is to hear a member of your family make a racist comment. Okay. Um, Knowing that you are half white and half black. I mean, don't you realize that you are making this comment? You're talking about me, you're talking about a half of me, okay? And vice versa, you know. When he hears, black family members, I guess, make a comment about, white people, don't you realize that, you're talking about me? That's a half of me. So it becomes quite, it's it can be challenging. I'll just put it like that. It is challenging. Okay. And trying to um, support and counsel him through these challenging years. I mean, I think I can't exactly say when he became aware. Is also when did he become aware that there was something different, about him. Um, I'm not exactly sure when that took place, but I know somewhere probably, I would say maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, and trying to help him deal with that. Louise said, how old is he? He's 20 now. He's 20. and he's going to LSU right now. And now he's really getting the, and he's really in the world now. Okay, he's an adult. So
Teresa,
navigating the adult world is more challenging, I would think.
Teresa
And
had a clarifying question, I think, Nancy.
okay, yes, Teresa.
Well, my question was originally going to be how old was he, but I don't know if this is too sensitive to ask. But what's his skin tone?
What is
If you
his
don't want to answer that,
complexion?
yeah,
No, he's very light skinned, not light enough to pass. He looks, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion. I mean, he kind of looks like he's Middle Eastern to me.
okay.
That's what it looks like now. When he was younger, he had that very biracial look, if that makes sense.
I have
Hmm.
a
The
clarifying
soft
question.
curly brown hair. He's light skinned, like soft curly hair that
Okay.
looks
I have
biracial.
a
But
clarifying
now,
question.
Oh,
hmm,
I
Thank
think
you.
there have already been two clarifying questions, I think. I may have lost track, but
what do you want to know, Glenn?
What was
You've
the con?
seen him. He used to
Yeah.
come
Oh,
to
yeah. I
with
know.
me.
Yeah. I met him when he was a child. I met him. He, 7, 8 years old. He used to
Hmm.
bring him to the meeting. Yes. What What was the comment that they made about him that he heard?
He heard them talking about Black people and using the N word with the ER. That's what he heard. That's most recently that I know that he heard.
Thank you.
He
thank
heard,
you.
and to be even worse, he heard his mother say it. So that kind of messed him up really bad. And I'm dealing with that now.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. We've got Amal, Larry, and Teresa, and then probably have time for a couple more before the wrap up. So, Amal?
Yeah, I wanted to deal with in particular the title, "Do interracial couples view racism the same way?" Now, based on the video, I didn't see anything in the video that answered that question because I just, it just seemed like they were kind of rambling in the video, in terms of, the different questions that were asked. I didn't really see the title as it's presented here on the what you call it here, do interracial couples view racism the same way? So I don't know because I've never been in one, so I don't want to seem like an expert on that. But based on the video, I didn't see nothing to suggest that they viewed anything differently or the same. What I got from the video is that everybody experience every individual relationship experience may be different depending on the kind of interracial relationship we're talking about. So we're talking about black, white, black and Asian, Asian and white, Hispanic and white, depending on who you're talking to. The reason I say that is because I've heard Hispanics use a term called they say it in Spanish, but in English, if you translate it, it's called improve the race. And what improve the race means is that the more whites you marry, the better we're getting. But if you step outside of white and you marry somebody black, then that's not improvement. So the experience may be based on who's dating who in terms of the level of racism that they experience, or if it's racism at all. So that's something that has to be considered as it relates to that question. What type of an interracial relationship are we talking about? Because once again, and even in Asian families, I've heard Asian women say, if they came home with a white guy, mom and daddy won't be so upset as if they came home with somebody black, a black male. Now we could go into the different reasons why we think that is, but this is coming out of the mouth of the people who've had these experiences in interracial relationships. Once again, I've never been in one, so I'm not in a position to say one thing either way.
That was Marima. Would you like
Okay.
to
No,
get back on?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Oh yeah, I'll get
All
back.
right.
I'll get back on.
Get back on. Okay. We've got Larry, Teresa, and then Amal, and maybe time for a couple more. Phyllis. Okay, Larry.
Okay, I think within the context of the question, do interracial couples view racism the same way? And my answer to that would be yes. Because within the racist system that we live under in America, with white people being a part of what they see as the dominant race, then I see white people seeing their black partner as marrying up into that dominant system of racism. You don't see as many white men marrying down, and I put that in quotation. You don't see as many white men marrying down and marrying black women as the other way around. It is the black men that's taking their multi-million-dollar contracts from their own communities and investing it in other communities. And you look at Clarence Thomas, married to a white Tea Party woman. You look at Byron Donalds, married to a white woman. Larry Elder, married to a white woman. Tim Scott, married to a white woman. And in all of these instances, you see these black men perhaps considering themselves as marrying up. And they all have this anti-black agenda about them. They can never say nothing encouraging to their own black people. So I believe that within their own mindset, they must think that they're marrying up. And so, yes, I see the overall question that they do see racism as different. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And Richard has a clarifying question.
Rev Larry, my clarifying question is, do you feel that the genuine, strong emotion of love has anything to do with the examples of the African American men marrying European American women? Does love come into play at all in these relationships, or is it the kind of skeptical attitude is that it's more of a financial prestige issue and love doesn't really enter into the equation?
No, that's a good question, Richard. And actually, in my notes that I had written to myself before I spoke, was that love is perhaps the strongest emotion between human beings. And I will not put myself in a position of judging, that relationship. I can't look into a person's heart, but just looking at it from the sense of the system that we live in, that is deeply rooted, always has been, in race and racism, I see another angle to it. But that's a good question.
Great, thank you. We've got Teresa, Amal, Phyllis, and Louise, and then we'll do wrap up. Teresa.
Okay, thank you. So going back to my very, very dark-skinned nephew who is a high-functioning autistic, mostly raised by my mother, somewhat both my parents, but mostly mom, grandma took over the reins, my sister, and now that I moved back, me, even though he's in his 30s, he still needs a lot of guidance. And he will swear up and down that he just loves white women. Has nothing to do with emulating the enslaver or anything. Part of it, however, and it's kind of a switcheroo, is that he says black women nag too much. And I said, what black women are you talking about? Because he doesn't go out anywhere without one of us. So it's not like he can drive and hang out. He doesn't really have friends except for at work. And, and it's like, his nana, his mother, and me. And I said, okay, so you're turned off by all black women because of the three women who are basically, well, I wouldn't say raising him because I was mostly out of the country when he was a child, but, and I thought it was funny. I said, you know why you don't think white women nag? Because you don't know any. I mean, his ideal woman is Kim Kardashian. Whenever we're out, he just loves. And I thought, and I looked at him. I said, you know, as light skinned as you are, you should be careful watching white women. We're in the South. He said, well, I also like Puerto Rican women and Mexican. And I said, what Mexican or Puerto Rican women do you know? How would you know that she's Mexican or Puerto Rican? And he said, well, because they're lighter skin and they have straight black hair. And I said, there's a lot of women who have that who aren't those nationalities. So, I mean, it's a really racist sexual fantasy of, oh, the white woman and this, that, and the other. I do think it is like a reaction to, oh, all these women or whoever like raised me were too strong. I mean, my mother, I know my mother is powerful. Okay. I know my mother is a powerful thing, but she's lighter skinned than me. So when you say black woman, he's talking about culturally. Because when I produced the Christmas show, I hired some dancers to perform. And his favorite performer was this very large black woman. And I was surprised because they were also skinny white women who tends to be what he ogles the most. But he liked the very, I mean, she was about medium brown, but really you would never call her skinny. Um, and I was surprised that that was his favorite dancer because that was the first time I saw him. Now I didn't bother to say, you know, she's a lesbian, but I was just like, okay, we've already said. I mean, I was already shocked that he said that a black woman was his favorite dancer and not one of the white women. So that was already like, wow. So you can see the beauty. But I pointed out to him, I said, you are dark as an ace of spade, and here you are being racist against other black people. All right, I'll get off.
It's
Thank
okay.
you.
I didn't know if you heard it or not, so I apologize. I'm trying
I
to
did not
keep it
hear it,
close.
but I
Okay.
did know.
I'm trying to keep it close. Amal, and then Phyllis and Louise, and we'll do wrap-ups. Go ahead, Amal.
Yeah, I wanted to. Richard asked an interesting question about love, and so I wanted to delve into that. Um, I'm going to answer that question, Richard, by saying no. I don't think that it's exclusively love, and particularly for Black people in this country. And the reason I say that is because historically we have an inferiority complex. And in that inferiority complex, everything that we see when we look in the mirror, we despise, i.e., dark skin, i.e., the texture of our hair, i.e., our anything that made us look very African, we despise. Well, how do we get rid of those features? We marry anything that's outside of, or we procreate, if you will, anything that's outside of. So it's no coincidence that you see a lot of these NFL and NBA players with white women. It's not purely based in love. It is purely based on the fact that a lot of these guys suffer from an inferiority complex. White people might not really understand this idea of this inferiority complex, but it goes into what Teresa was just talking about when she said how her sister looked at her nephew when he was born, cousin. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but it was a family member of hers looked at her nephew and she immediately said how dark he was. She wasn't saying that to talk about the beauty of his dark skin. She was saying that like, oh my God. So that inferiority complex has haunted us even to this day. And a lot of us, they're Black women who wouldn't dare wear their hair like Teresa wear their hair because they don't want, because that's looked down upon. I know Black people who would not hire her because of the texture, the way she wears her hair. I've heard Black women say, I wouldn't hire nobody with their hair look like that. These are inferiority complex, and we were taught this during slavery. So a lot of what you see in terms of how we date, how we marry, is based in that inferiority complex. So a lot of us, if we can't get a white woman, we'll get the very lighter skinned African American woman that we can find. And this stuff is based in history. You can look at the brown paper bag test. You can look at the doll test. When children were asked, you know, who was the doll that was pretty and which doll is most likely to do this, that, and the third. All of the time when there was something positive, the white doll was chosen. All the time when there was something negative, the darker skinned doll was chosen. This is based in historical reality. So I don't want nobody to think I'm just making this stuff up.
That was the time.
Yeah,
Amal.
that's cool. That's cool.
Okay, thank you. And we've got Louise, and then we'll do wrap ups. Oh, I'm so sorry. Phyllis is next, and then Louise. My apologies.
I didn't know which order it was coming in. But
Yeah, no, you're right. I had,
you.
for some reason, crossed you off because I anticipated calling on you, and then I forgot.
I do that.
My brain.
So
Thank you.
In watching the video, which sadly I only did once, I would say I just looked at it as, here's a bunch of people who fell in love with each other, got in relationships, had to deal with family members on either or both sides who might not have been accepting, and still stayed together, still, you know, maybe brought the family around. I personally would be very afraid of a Korean mother not liking me in any situation because of the movies I watch. But I really appreciated, like, I think it was the guy who I think was Ethiopian and the white woman he was with. And he said one of his cousins, who he described as a hotep, wrote that she was offended by their relationship, and he blocked her. And I hope, you know, I think conversation with people is better than just kicking them to the curb unless they don't want to have a conversation and are abusive. But I just think, yeah, there's historical crap between lots of different ethnicities. Part Chinese, part Thai, Vietnamese person I know recently told me all Asian people just hate other Asian people from their different groups. And I'm sure that's not 100% true across the board because he's part Chinese and part Vietnamese. So I just think people in this day and age, especially younger people, they're going into relationships without some of the baggage that I think previous white and other races had towards dating outside their relationships. I think there's more acceptance of, because there's so many biracial children now. I think there's just more acceptance. At least I hope so.
That was the 2 minutes. And we're going to go a little bit over. Apologies. I did not do awesome keeping track, but hopefully nobody is pressed to leave. Louise, go ahead with your 2 minutes and then wrap us.
Okay. Well, there's so many different points. Of course, you know how it is. If you don't have pen and paper and write it down, you forget, which I kind of have. But I think I was making a point about Larry's and Glenn's idea that rich men, you know, they marry in for money, power, and prestige. You know, yeah, I agree. That might be a percentage, small percentage, but as Phyllis just said, you know, your regular Joe Schmo person, your regular person who is falling in love with someone from another culture or another race, you know, they don't have any other. And I do agree, and Amal's point as well, saying that there's low self-esteem, for sure. I'm sure there's something going on there as well. And I think the biggest thing about an interracial relationship is the white person has to really be open-minded and listen to the person of the other culture because obviously they've been living it, their whole lives. They've had it through the ancestors, so it's you've got to have an open, understanding relationship. But there are basic, normal, regular people that fall in love with someone from a different race. I just want to make that quite clear. That, and as you said again, Phyllis, that more and more so now, the new generations of people are way more actually open-minded and willing to, take that plunge. But yeah, families can be a problem. I had it in my family as well, with one of my brothers marrying someone and my dad being a complete racist piece of crap, even though he's from, Egypt. So yeah, that does happen, and that's very unfortunate. I think that's all I really wanted to make a point. Just that, that's it. Then I'm done.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
As it relates to something that we said, you said that your brother married someone that your father didn't approve of.
Yeah, because even though he's dark skinned or he's from Egypt, my brother, who is still married after, like, I think it's 40 years, 45, 40, whatever. It's a bloody long time that they've been married, and they're very happy, and they're fantastic. And it's an iconic relationship as far as I'm concerned. A Pakistani girl who I went to school with. She was in my class, actually. And, but my dad is, was racist against Pakistanis.
Okay,
Which,
so the question I wanted to ask was it isn't, you say your father's Egyptian, but isn't your mother English?
yes.
So he's in an interracial relationship, and
Oh yeah, but she's English, not Pakistani. Don't you understand? He had his little, he had his little pockets, and it all never made sense because he was, a little off. But yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
All right.
I got a clarifying question.
Sure.
Louise, so he felt that the Pakistani woman was from an inferior race.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for the wrap up, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the folks who did not speak. It was Leonetta, but she looks like she left the meeting. Dee Dee, and then Richard, I can't recall, did you? I don't know if you spoke or not.
I don't think he did.
I asked clarifying questions.
Okay, so does that count? I don't even recall.
No, that doesn't
Okay,
count.
I didn't think so. So we've got Richard and Dee Dee who get 2 minutes on the wrap up. Richard, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. This was in 30 years of discussions, this is, I think, one of the most eye-opening and rewarding discussions I've heard. We really raised some very emotional and deep-seated issues, and I think it's been eye-opening for me, and particularly because and I hadn't thought of it until I went into this discussion, I think it's going to affect how I think about my a biracial member of my extended family, not my immediate family, but my extended family. So just for that reason alone, I appreciate all the points of view in this discussion. One thing that may lead into another discussion sometime later, and this gets back to the issue that the words we use in discussing relationships in other races is important, and this ties in with Pride Month and with the interracial and same-sex relationship in one of the couples that we heard about. In the same way that the N-word is problematic for those of us, particularly in older generations, and it's the first time I brought it up in kind of a public context like this. I would suspect people in generations of below me and about my generation have the problem with the word queer being used to describe gay relationships. And, it's gotten to the point now where you have queer studies and queerness. And I frankly have a lot of trouble with that for the same reason that I have trouble with the N-word being used in so much rap music, hip hop music, which is a big reason I have a lot of problem with rap and hip hop music, is it's seen as being appropriate. That word is appropriated in a way to lessen the impact of the word. And it's the same thing with queer. I mean, those of us in my generation knew that to describe a gay person as queer was a very negative thing to do. And it apparently now is being appropriated by the gay community in the same way that I think the N-word is in some respects. I know it's not quite equivalent, but I have a lot of problem with that word being used. And I would suspect that a lot of gay folks in my generation are still trying to come to terms with that. So just another thing to throw into the pot, but otherwise a really great discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Dee Dee, you have 2 minutes if you'd like it. Nice to see you, by the way.
Nice to be here. My internet was out last night and this morning, and so I didn't get to watch the video. And I'm in the clubhouse of where I live using their internet, which is how I got to this meeting. Okay. This has been an interesting meeting. I didn't hear a whole lot that I didn't expect to hear. But I was raised in a different culture than you guys were raised in. And Charlie is my husband. He and I have been married 31 years, and he is white. He is a cop, a retired cop. He was a very good cop. He was not a bad cop. I was a funeral director for 34 years. And so there was no status thing with us. We were, to coin what Louise said, we were two regular people. Okay. He had been married 4 times previously. He had his children with his first wife, who was Mexican. Actually, she's Spanish. And then he decided he only wanted 2 children, so he got himself fixed. And so that was the end of that. He and I we did a seminar in church about interracial marriage. And it came down to the point of we don't notice. We don't notice until people start staring. And the only time we've ever seriously been stared at was in Quartzsite, which is on the border of California and Nevada. And there is a lot of, I don't want to say ignorant, but inexperienced people of the world in there. And we went into a restaurant to get something to eat. And I swear they had never seen a Black person and a white person eat in a restaurant before, because there was a lot of eyes on us. And we made a game out of it and stared right back at them. And we didn't flip them off or anything. We just looked at them and watched them eat. And got done. We were laughing. We moved on to together. But a more serious situation we had is all of our grandchildren are adults. One of them married into a family of Trumpsters. Okay. And so,
Dee Dee, I'm sorry to interrupt. That was the time. I mean, I'm okay if you continue to tell the story, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else.
I'll make it short.
Okay.
When their grandchild was born, the grandfather, who was white, would not let me hold my grandchild. Okay. And I'm one of those that I'll sit back and I'll assess the situation and then plan my attack, basically. And so I let this go on for a couple of times, and I was verbal about it. So he knew what he was doing, and he knew that I noticed what he was doing. But then it came time for that child's first birthday. And the granddaughter wanted me to make some ceramic mementos for the birthday party. And I said, here's the deal. Okay. I have never held my grandchild. There is no picture of me with my grandchild. She is my grandchild. Okay. And so the only way you're going to get what you want is I want pictures taken with her, and I want to hold her, and I want to spend time with her. And she said, okay. And we set up a photo session. It went fine. And it turns out that that child, personality wise, is my mini me. And she is the most like me. And it's really kind of neat watching her grow up. Now, the in laws that started all of this, when we go over to their house, they go into another room.
Jesus Christ.
And so that stuff does go on in California. Okay. But I recognize it for what it is. And, I don't acknowledge it, but this kind of stuff does go on, you know. So I'm done.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, 1 minute wrap ups. Nancy, if you have a wrap up.
This is very interesting discussion. I'm sure we could go on and on, but I do want to address, there's a difference between an older generation and how they viewed interracial relationships as opposed to the younger generation. And I think the younger generation, and what I've been told, is they just find somebody who's a different race than them more interesting. They have experiences, they look at things different, and they're just, the contrast of their life experiences they find more interesting. It's not a trade up or trade down or anything like that. It's just different and it's more interesting. All right, thank you very much for bringing this topic. I hope we have like part 2 or something like that.
Thank you. Marian, you've got a minute if you would like it.
I will say this was an extremely invigorating and interesting discussion today, and I certainly appreciate Marla choosing this topic. I really got a lot out of it. Thank you so much, Marla, and thanks to everybody else's comments as well.
Thank you. Louise, you have a minute.
Yeah, Nancy, you are so right. The older generation, and Glenn, that's my dad. Or, he was from, he had so many problems. One of them was, delusions of grandeur, thinking that he's better than everybody else. That was only one of his problems. That we could have a whole topic on my dad. But anyway, our family have married into, I mean, we're like United Nations, we've got Moroccans, Egyptians, Sudanese. We've got a lot of mixtures in our families that we've married into. But just to say, yeah, things have changed. People are a little more open minded and a little bit more willing to accept and be and learn from each other. Um, Definitely. And Marla, yeah, great subject, and we should have a part 2. Totally agree.
Thank you. Phyllis, you have 1 minute.
Well, I appreciated getting to watch this video. And I want to say, yeah, just like the older generation the younger generations, like Nancy said, have different responses to interracial dating. The younger generations are also using language that older generations, as Richard said, such as queer. It is not the slur it used to be. Many people identify that way, and it's changed its meaning. It's used in various descriptions, and it's different. So on that note, I will say love is love and happy Pride.
Thank you. Teresa, you have 1 minute.
All right. One thing I forgot to mention in the general discussion, the Samoan guy. And I wouldn't say the first couple of times he was on, he kept referring to himself as a white guy, a white guy. It brought back just like experiences in my life when I look at somebody like that guy in the video
Down.
and he says, "Well, I'm white," and blah blah. And I thought I would have never pegged you for white. And then later on, it came up and he said, "I'm half Samoan." I said, "Bingo, that's what you are in my mind," because the one drop rule. And I was going to talk more about that, but my conversation got kind of sideways. But when you're talking about marrying, I famously have never married, but I have dated across the spectrum. And one thing that's interesting, you're talking about married up, married down, whatever. Black men and white men alike, who even talked about us having children together and marrying and da 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 da. And I thought we are not that serious, but they all said the same thing. They want a smart, beautiful woman to have their children. And it's very flattering. I've had white guys who said that to me. I have had black men who said that to me. So it may be kind of in the way an overthink, but when guys in general are ready to be dads, they are looking for certain qualities. I mean, that's the only reason why they would date me, but they were just like, oh, if you and I had a child together. And it always, to me, it was just like, oh, you're already fantasizing about us having kids. And I always think, oh, that's going to be a birth control fail. We got to break up. We're not, there's always this, well, women try to trap men, no. I always felt on the other side of that. And when a guy would give like the fantasy of, oh, if we had kids and you told the kids something and I would just agree with you, I wouldn't even have to know the situation because you're so smart and this, that, and the other. But anyway, nice video. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glenn, you have a minute?
Yes, I enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you, Marla, for bringing it up. No matter, for a brief moment in the 60s, we had pride in ourselves. We loved ourselves for a brief moment. We had an identity. Everybody had the big afro on, putting on dashiki. We had a good, but now, oh no, we don't love ourselves. We want to be everybody but who we are. The wig industry. We buying wigs. That's not our identity. We're chopping our noses down. That's not our identity. To show you that we do not approve of who we are. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. Molly, you have a minute?
Yeah, great article. And a lot of interesting points came out of it. I think a lot of people who, when we're trying to separate the generations, and say this generation thought like that, and these new kids are just, looking for somebody. Nobody has really addressed the idea that Black people still suffer from an inferiority complex. That hasn't went anywhere. As recently as 2000 and I think like 13, when Anderson Cooper repeated the baby doll test on CNN. I think it was 2013. And those little Black kids that he did it with, the results were the same as they were when the test was originally done, and I think like 1948 or 49 or something like that. The results were the same. So you do the math between what 1948 and 2012 is, but nothing's changed in terms of how Black people view themselves. And we don't want to accept the fact that we date interracially a lot of times for the reasons of how we view ourselves. I've heard Black women say, I'm gonna get with either very light-skinned man or a white man so that my children won't come out so Black. I've heard this come out of Black women's mouth. So no, we haven't addressed our issues. So whenever I see a Black person in an interracial relationship, I'm thinking two things. A person who has a low racial pride, self-esteem, or a person who's so bought into European standards of beauty. And we can't get around that issue because we still have that problem.
Thank you, Amal. Larry, your last 1 minute and we're done.
Okay, I think whether we're old or young, new generation, old generation, the truth of the matter is, and even as someone mentioned about biracial children and attitudes, but even if they're biracial children, from the standpoint of the dominant society, they're still Black. I don't care how light skinned they are, they're still Black, which lets you know this racism thing is deeply, deeply rooted. And it's going to be with us for a while as long as we have these so-called white Christian nationalism, people who think they're ordained by God to rule over this whole nation. And so this was an interesting article, and see you next time.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything to add, honestly. I've really appreciated all of the comments, and thanks for being patient with running over a little. I think it was kind of nice, actually. I really enjoyed the extra conversation. So with that, we can end the recording and announcements.